in Europe, the second biggest in the world. We have the biggest pharmaceutical industry in Europe, the second biggest in the world. We have the largest R&D presence in the UK. We have 4 of the top 10 universities in the world, all in the UK. Now, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a bit of a commercial, but it goes to what you're saying about our position in the world. However, dropping one place in the hit parade, does that mean we're going to loosen our influence in the rest of Europe? Well, I don't see that. I don't see that as a premise because I don't see that as directly affecting that. Your point about increased perception of racism, that's rather concerning, and it's not something that's come across my radar. Perhaps I'm 12,000 miles away and I'm not seeing it so well. Maybe I'm reading the wrong newspapers. I don't want to deny that's a problem. You know, we have our issues, we have immigration issues, and there were some other statistics that came out just the other day about the impact on Britain's ethnicity makeup and multiculturalism throughout the last previous government we had, and consequences of uncontrolled numbers and so forth. But I'm not seeing a negative impact. I mean, I'm happy if you want to develop that argument still further.
For me, I think the issue is the UK becoming more insular? Is it becoming more isolated? And I think and the issue comes back to the special relationship with the state, which is disappearing before our eyes.
I see where you're going, yeah. Look, I mean, I come back facetiously to say it depends on what newspapers one reads. And I think I made a remark somewhere in here about we do show Little Englander tendencies. And I regret that. And I think that those are usually sensationalist reporting. And that we are a multicultural nation. And we have our hotspots. And we had our riots last English summer. I don't think they had anything to do with race, but people tried to attach that to it. It was something a bit more complex, or possibly even a bit more simple than that. Are we more isolated? I think we have always suffered from this, fogging channel, continent cut off thing. But we are somewhat above the rest of people in Europe. We are separated, and we don't want to be told what to do by those faceless bureaucrats in Brussels. And as ever with bigoted opinions, it's born from ignorance. And I think once you start explaining to people how it really works, then you can start to sort of cut down that isolation. I personally get very irritated by that kind of insularity that you talked about. It was shown at its worst during our debate on whether we should join the euro. Now there were 2 levels of debate. One was quite a sensible one, which was, is it right for an economy like ours, which at the time had interest rates, on average, at least 3 percentage points above everybody else's in Europe, suddenly to join a single currency and have massive disruptions to our currency, consequences of unemployment, da-di-da-di-da, proper economic debate, whether you agree with them or not. And then the other debate, which took place in the Daily Express and the Daily Mail, at the level of something like, will we still have a picture of the Queen on the euro coins? Unfortunately, that latter debate prevailed and politics got in the way. Sorry.
Any more questions? Yes.
You mentioned the William Hague policy of moving away from the EU and the US towards Asia. And I'm looking at Africa and seeing that 60% of the fastest growing economies are based in Africa at the moment. Let's say you have Brazil, for example, South America, that's as was mentioned, has overtaken the US, the UK in terms of GDP. So I'm wondering the future UK policy of commercial diplomacy, as you mentioned. Is there a bigger focus on Africa in terms of trade and so on, and also other emerging areas like South America?
Yeah. I mean, I take slight issue with your terminology. When William Hague talked about his vision of relationships, it wasn't a question of turning away from the EU. It was expanding our existing ones. Look, I have to confess, I'm not a great Africa expert. I haven't done any of those particular positions, but we are opening more diplomatic posts in Africa, and we do recognise what is happening in Africa commercially. We recognise, for example, what China are doing in Africa. I heard the other day there are something like 1 million Chinese registered across Africa. Now that's just the registered ones. There may be 2 or 3 million Chinese. So they are seeing clearly the opportunity, the commercial opportunities in resources. One of the additional sets of relationships we're building up is with the Commonwealth. We are exploiting those through for our African purposes as well. I think you make a very good point. I guess there is a question about how much we can do, because we have Africa, we have Latin America, we have Asia, we have China. There's a question of priorities as well, but we certainly do recognise that. Yes.
Any more questions?
I just want to talk especially about commercial diplomacy on the ground in Australia. What kind of activities and programs are in place to enable that?
Okay, thank you. I recognise your accent. Yes. We have 5 diplomatic presences in Australia. We have a High Commission in Canberra. We have the Consul-General that I run here in Melbourne. We have a larger one in Sydney and 2 smaller ones in Perth and Brisbane. Outside of Canberra, most of the staff in those Consulates General work for a body called UK Trade and Investment. This is a joint government department of the Foreign Office, my home department, and the Business, Innovation and Skills Department. And its staff spend their time working with British companies who want to export here, and they will give them services, many of which we charge for. So these are chargeable services that companies get from us. There may be market analysis reports, they may be setting up programs of meetings with prospective buyers and partners and so forth. And the other bit of UK trade and investment are working with Australian companies who want to set up and invest in the UK. And that's essentially, that's the mechanism through which we do it. We call it commercial diplomacy because we are a government body and because we are using our diplomatic connections, diplomatic relationships, and using our visiting politicians to make the best of those commercial relationships. I hope that goes. There's a much longer answer, but I hope that helps. Yes.
I'm not sure whether it's a question to you or to the next speaker. Could you possibly briefly explain what the links between national embassies and the delegation? Who's responsible for what? We have a problem with speakers coming when we ask them to deliver some certificates they don't know.
The question is about the relationship between national embassies and consulates and the EU delegation, and who you should come to first if you're looking for speakers. You should always come to the national delegations first. No, I don't think I could answer that. But I mean, look, I will ask Andrea to explain that. But we have, I'm part of the British Diplomatic Service, but we now have something called the European External Action Service. Yeah, and we are closely related with each other for obvious reasons. But what you have to understand about European foreign policy, the common foreign and security policy, is that we have a common policy, and do stop me if we're getting wrong. We have a common policy when we agree. And that means when all the member states agree. Now, for some member states, like my own, the UK, we attach huge importance to maintaining for our own competence, our own decision-making ability on foreign policy. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we don't have a discussion with other member states. We're very, very closely integrated into those discussions, and most of the time we are part of a common foreign and security policy that we have helped develop and then helped to deliver. And that may be to do with Libya or Iran or Syria or whatever. So it does work. I have probably not answered your question about who to go to first, but I mean, if you're inviting speakers on purely foreign policy, one might argue you should go to Andrea first. But equally, why not get a view from national member consulates and embassies on their view of foreign policy? As a classic diplomatic, on one hand this, on the other hand that. But I don't know whether you wanted to contribute, Andrea, or whether you're...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I guess it depends what you want to, I mean, what kind of information, what is behind your request. I didn't understand, I mean, if you give me an example, maybe it would be easier.
So, for example, in the areas in which you agree, like when there is foreign policy, is there any cooperation on the ground in a foreign country between embassies?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is there, for example, development aid administered by one or all of them? Is there, what kind of cooperation is there between national embassies and the EU delegation?
Okay, first of all, we have, following the entry into force of the Lisbon Treaty, which was the last constitutional change within the EU, the European Union delegation represents the EU, as Stuart said, in terms of common foreign security policy, which means something which was previously done by the rotating presidency, which changed every 6 months. The rotating presidency has no longer any role to play. It is the EU delegation who speaks on behalf and represents the EU. We have in the capital monthly meetings with EU ambassadors from all member states, which we chair. We have meetings of economic and commercial councillors. We have meetings of press and culture information councillors. So we have meetings. We are constantly talking to each other and exchanging views. But when it is about, for example, engaging with Australia to get the support of Australia for voting rights in the UN, which is something which was, we had to deal last year. It was the EU delegation who went and met with officials from the Australian authorities, and was not a number of individual embassies. Another important feature, I think, of our sort of authority is in the area of trade policy. It is true that member states are still fully competent on commercial promotion or assisting their companies, etc. But when it is about negotiating a free trade agreement, when it is about talking about WTO negotiations that go around, very clearly it is the European Commission and therefore the EU delegation which is in the leading role in talking to government over there. But of course we do that, we do consult before and we report back to member states, so it is a constant coordination, I would say. But at least with the latest change, we have streamlined this, because we have now a one-stop shop which is there, which is permanent, and we have a high representative for foreign policy, Baroness Ashton, who is also there, sort of not changing every 6 months as it used to be the case.
Your question was the modern rendition of the one that Henry Kissinger asked all those years ago. What's the phone number of Europe?
Yes. We had, in a sense, a very interesting illustration, because we had a smooth transition from one speaker to the next. But however, I did not introduce you formally, which I wish to do now. So let's take our first speaker and then...